Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. How are you?
Fine, thank you, sir.
Yeah. I hope your people will start on time today. Oh.
Yes, I'm trying to rally them.
All right, thanks. Hello.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dr. Francis.
Yeah. Vivian, how are you? Long time.
No here or no talk. Yeah. Mhm.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, guys, can we start now? Because we have a lot to cover. So that's
Yes, sir.
all right. So last week, I think we started with pandas, right? So,
Yes, sir.
yeah. So let me show you. My screen up now. All right. So we started with pandas last week, right? So before we start anything, we need to first of all import our library. So what are the libraries we are going to bring in? What are the libraries we will bring in now? What are the libraries we are going to bring in? Yes, NumPy. So
NumPy.
yes, import NumPy as NP. Import pandas as isn't it? Once we have got all the libraries we need, then we can start working. So we say pandas is like Excel, isn't it? It's like Excel in Python. Okay. And the advantage over it is now that you can one automate and also you can handle really large data sets, usually your big data. Okay. You can handle any kind of data. And just like NumPy, so the foundation of every other library you are working with usually with NumPy. Okay. Because most time NumPy is more like numerical Python. So usually for mathematical building mathematical expressions and the rest. Okay. But pandas in itself is more like the way you think about tables in Excel. Okay. But before we talk about tables in Excel, we need to talk about what series. Because what NumPy works with is what a matrix. So what you are seeing as a matrix is like your table. Okay. But that single row or single column in NumPy, usually in mathematics, we call it a vector, right? But the combination of the row and column is what we call a matrix. So you can see a matrix as a table. So it's on that basis that they have now built your pandas. Okay. So that single row or column is called a series. So in pandas, it's called what? A series. Okay. While when we have an array, when we say an array simply means what? A collection of what? Values. But if it's one dimensional, either a row or a column is called a series. Okay. But if it's two dimensional, that means it has row and column. It is called what? What do we call that? Yes, what do we call it? If it's two dimensional with rows and column in pandas, what do we call it? Yes, what do we call it? Hello. So in pandas, a two-dimensional array, what do we call it?
The data frame.
Yes, a data frame. Okay, a data frame. So that's what we are going to be working throughout, a data frame. Okay, and we give example of how to create a simple data frame, because most times your data will be unstructured. So it will be in form of a list, right? Such as you can have maybe something like states. They'll be in form of either a list, right? I can have states maybe like Lagos, Abuja, Harcourt. You can have sales. You can have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. This one, 4, 5, no. Good. Okay. You can have it that way. Or alternatively, we can have them combined together. I can call it data equal to, I will now have my states. So let me just copy this one. I can have my states like this. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Good. So if I have data like this, I'll have something like this. So it's important to understand how to move it from this form towards a data frame. Because most times, if your data is unstructured, it will come in this form. So you first of all put it in a list. Then from a list, you can move it to a dictionary. Then from a dictionary, you can now go towards a data frame, or you can go directly. So either ways. Okay. So in doing that, in putting it in form of what? A data frame. So what do we need to do? We need to call it maybe this thing called df, that means data frame, equals to what? Pd dot what? Data frame. I'll just call it data. What happened there? If you are using a scalar value, you must pass an index. Okay. So what will be the index here? Do you know what the error is? So you must pass an index. So we have the data, right? Because you know every table must have what? Your rows and columns. So what will be the index now? So maybe we'll call the index what? States. So we call it states. Sorry. Okay, states not defined. Have we run this one? No. Okay. All right. Okay, since I didn't run that first one. Yep. So let me run that index. Let's say that will work for us. So you can see that, right? But you see how it's arranging them. You see how it's arranging them. So you're just taking it like Lagos, or Lagos 10, 20, 30. But most times, your data may not always look this way. Right? Your data may not always look this way. Okay. So that's why when you create your what do you call it, your list, right? You need to first of all have an idea of how it's going to be structured. Okay. So that's why if we have it then in two forms. So the way I have my list, my states. So where's my states here? Let me copy my states. So just the way I have my states here, right? I have my states here, and I have my, what they call it, my sales values here. My sales value. So let me run that so that we can see it. But let me just bring them together so you can see everything at once. So you have your state, you have your sales, isn't it? We have your state and you have your sales. So if I want to bring them together in a dictionary, just like instead of me entering them one after the other like this, what we can simply do, we can just call it maybe data equal to, so I'll put it in form of a dictionary. So I'll call maybe states. State to be represented by states, right? Then comma. Then let's say sales will be represented by sales. Can we see that now? So run this in state and take this inside what sales. Okay, so if I run data, I'll see it this way. The same way I had done the, so df is equals to pd dot data frame. Now I can call what data. So df, it will run straight this way. So it will be easier to work this way. All right. So whichever method you like to use, okay. But if you want to further expand, let's say you want to put data there now. If you want to put data there now, so let's say I want to generate random numbers, so we can see them in form of what? A table. Okay. So normally we would have said import numpy, is it not? From numpy now, we'll now import your random. But another thing you can also do, you can just run it straight and you now say from numpy dot random import maybe rand n. Can you see that? You know what normally would have done? Say import numpy dot np, is it not? Import numpy as np. They will now say import random. Then later I will now say random dot rand n. But here we can just import it straight. Can you see that? We can import it straight and use what? This library here. So in that case, if I want my data frame, I can now create a data frame as pd.data frame. Can you see that? So I can now create the structure of it. So maybe it can be rand, maybe rand n. What shape should we use? What shape should we use? What should be the shape of the data we should use? Okay, let's use a smaller data that we can really read. Okay. Then index, let's create an index for it. So if I create an index, let's say A, B, C, D, E. Now, if I want to separate them now, you can also use your splits. Just to separate the columns, right? The text. Then we can also have columns. The same way I can also have maybe, let's say, which one should we use now?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Dot split. Okay, 5 by 5. Let me see.
Yeah, so we need to reduce the
Okay, this is
the
5 by 4. Yeah, this is 5. Okay, let's use this as 5 by 5. You know, this both of them must match. So if you run that, so you see this is on the index, right? Why this is the column name? But if I want to change the column name, let's say the column name, let's have what? Let's say Abuja, Lagos, BH. Can you see that now? So we now have what data there. Okay. So I'm sure this is what we did last week now, right?
yes.
This is what we did last week. Okay. And you know, if I want to read the column now, right? Just the same in a list. So if I have, for example, states and I want to read the list out, right? I can now call it by what? Maybe by the index number, right? So the same way, it starts with what? Index what? 0. So it will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The same thing, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So irrespective of what you label it, even if I go and label here as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, by default, you normally be reading it as what? An index. But you can also read it by the name, but most time you read it by what? The index. So we can also slice. We can also what? Slice. So if I have df, if I want to read, if I want to extract begin out, to df begin. So to extract begin out. Can I see begin now? So to extract that data out. Or I can do it the same way. I will now put double brackets. Begin. So that's how it's looking. So either if you come out this way, it's like the series. But if you come out this way, it's like the data frame. So you can either use this or this. Okay. But if I want to see it the way it comes out like a data frame, it come out this way. If you want it to look like a series, you use a single word bracket. All right. Okay. So the same way, when we try to generate, so this was just for random, so this one like in fractions. But if you wanted to use whole numbers now, if you're using whole numbers now, what we have used for whole numbers? We can use, can we use rand int? We rand int one.
Yes, and int.
Okay, we rand int one for us. Random integers. So rand int work the same way. Say rand int not defined. Did we import it?
No, we've not imported it.
Rand.
What we imported was one n.
Yeah, rand int. What did you say? Okay, let's run it again. So I've got in rand int, right? Good. So normally for your random numbers, so if I was to generate random numbers, right? You know, the same way we would have generated it, I'll just do np dot what? Random dot what? Rand int, isn't it? So maybe random numbers. But you know how rand doesn't really, you cannot structure it the same way you structure your rand n. Because rand, if I have maybe 1 to 20, give it by 10. Sorry. Rands, okay, rands. Rand int. Rand int. So if I was to put it in a data frame, how do I put it in a data frame now? If I want to put this in the data frame, how do I put it in the data frame?
df is equal to pd dot data frame.
Okay, so let's call df is equal to pd dot what? Data frame. Then should I call this? Let me call this what? A. Let's call it A. So if I put it inside here now, say df. Can you see this? So it has entered into what? A data frame. Now, but this label, now, how do we now change the label? You know, most times it's also good you also have a label. Let me call it, maybe if I call it label, let me call this one what? Let me call it sales. So this, if I want to put the label there, what do I now do? It will be the same thing, but the only difference now is that I will now put comma there. So that's for the data. I can call this data equal to A. Then I can now call columns equal to what? Label. What do they say? They must be collection of some, okay, sales was passed. Must be some collection. Okay. Okay. What if I, let me see. So this is for the data, and then the columns say label. What if we just, let me take this one out and call it label. Let's see how long. Must be a collection of some kind. Okay, okay. Remember when we did it last time, you have to put it inside what's like a list. I think this is what we did last time, right? They have to sit like in a list. Let me see. But if this one doesn't work, then what we can now do, we can just use rename. Right? We can just use rename. Let's say column equal to what? So 0, we'll call it what? What are we going to call it now? We'll call it sales, right? Sales. So this one will work. But this one, what was the issue here? Why is it not seeing it? Why for this method, when we are using it, passing it inside the list, it's not seeing it? Yes?
So what if we try to use columns is equal to then a columns is equal to then a string by itself without the attribute, without the variable label.
Like this, right?
Yes.
But it's still giving the same. It's a index. Okay, index called the collection index. So where's our index? So we don't have any index, right? We don't have any index.
So if we do shift tab, the thing that is to come out,
we can show what we need, right?
yes.
So columns or index. Where is the example? You see the example. Okay. So most times again, if sometimes maybe I don't remember all that, when I come to this one, I'll just copy whatever I see here, do you get? I just go and edit it. Because sometimes you may not remember everything, but the only thing that whenever you have issue, you just know where to go. Right? You just know where to go. And the more errors you have. So you see, for example, now they created a column separately. But now in our own case, we only have one column. So it's not allowing us, it's saying that we need to pass, must be called with a collection. Do you get? So does that mean that we cannot just pass one column name?
Or we should put the column inside a bracket as a list, as the sales inside it.
Yeah, that's what I did. Okay, here, right?
So mine worked, and what I did was just leave it as it was before. That is, data equals A, and then columns equals label.
Okay, so I did but I think it works now. But this particular one works, right? But I wanted to see why mine didn't work. So df is equals to pd dot data frame. So use a comma labels, right? Let me remove. Is this what you did? You left it on this way, right? Or you put it in a list?
No, it was in a list.
Okay,
Like
it
you
was in
said,
a list.
so
Yes, probably today in a list, yes. So then if we pass it here now, so label. So yours, you run yours like this and
no, I didn't run mine like that. I ran it as data equals A, and column equals label.
Okay, data equal A. You now specify columns equals like this. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this works, right? Okay, let's check. Tab. Where is it? pd.data frame. Tab. Okay, so look at. So the first one is what? Data. The next one is the index. Okay, followed by the column. Do you understand? You know,
Yes.
if we have left it, if we had just put the first variable, whatever I put by default is data. The next thing that you put there is index. But meanwhile, what we wanted to put was the column.
Columns. Okay. So it was
So
reading
that was why
label.
the error was there. You get?
Okay.
That's why the error was there. This is the second. This was the first thing, data. The second thing was index, followed by the column. So that's why it gave us that error that index must be of a collection of some kinds. But meanwhile, we only called sales. I hope you understand why that error came about.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
The error was getting, okay, that's fine. That's fine. All right. So maybe what we can do, I think we can start importing. We can import this thing now, right? We can import. What do they call it now? Excel files now. We can import Excel files now. Which Excel data do we have? Which Excel data do we have? Or probably if we are working with this smaller data sets, where is this one? Okay, let me use this one that I was working with here. This GF. Let me use this one a bit before we import data. So when we see it on the smaller scale, probably we understand it when we are working with larger data. Okay. Now, can I apply arithmetic operations on them? If I say df plus df, does this work? Df dot df, does it work? If I say df times 2, Does it do anything? DF times 10. If I say DF times 10, will it do anything for us?
It did though.
It did, right? So I say DF times
It did.
DF times minus 10. Can you see that? So as you apply, right, it works. So if I say DF times 10 minus DF times minus. So you see, as I'm even applying on them, the data will also change, right? Is there absolute value? What's the absolute? Is it ABS? I can't remember. Absolute value of DF. Can you see that? Absolute value. So it means if I multiply this by minus 1, let's say 1,000, the absolute value. Can you see that? Can we also round up? Round. And round it to no decimal place. Can we see that? So I can now call this one DF. Sorry, DF equal to. So you see, after rounding up, we can just have the data like that. Okay, so let's assume we have the data this way, right? So remember, we can what? Extract. You know, we can slice it. Normally, we can slice by the index, right? Or we slice by the column name. So if I have DF0, DF0, you see, it doesn't understand what that is, right? It doesn't understand what this is yet. But if I call it by the name, DF Abuja, now please take note, Python is extremely case sensitive. So the way you write type must be exactly the same name. It must be exactly the same name. So DF Abuja. But if I want to put it like in the proper data frame, I'll have to use double what? Square brackets. Let's do that square bracket. All right. So we'll read it that way. Okay? We'll read it that way. So it means if I want to extract two columns, that means if I want to extract Abuja and Lagos, how will I extract Abuja and Lagos? So it will be DF double bracket, you know, Abuja, comma, Lagos. Lagos. Can you see that? Abuja and Lagos. So if I want to select the columns, right? So I can look at it and call it maybe A, Abuja and Lagos. Can you see that? So AL is Abuja and Lagos. You can extract that particular data and put it in a variable. Because you know when you are working there, once you get your original data, right? Always leave your original data set because something may happen that you have to revert back to the original, right? So that's why you always have to create like a copy or a duplicate of it. So that whenever you are working and there are any issues, you can always go back to your original data to work with. Okay. Now the same way we have DF Abuja, right? We can also do the same thing. This is also the same thing as using what do you call it? DF dot Abuja. Can you see they're exactly the same thing? So either I use it this method or I use it in this method. Okay. So what else can we do? So it means that if I want to create a new column, let's say DF now. Let's say I want to create a new column. Let's say I want to create a new column for maybe, let's say Oyo State, right? We want to create a new column for Oyo State. And the formula for Oyo State is, maybe for us to get Oyo State. So if I want to create a new column, it will be DF Then I'll create what? Oyo. Can you see that? If I now say that Oyo State is the same thing as what? DF Abuja plus DF, let's say Benin. Can you see that? So the same way we add it up. So it's Abuja plus Benin to give us what? Oyo. So if I have this, I should not have a new state. Can you say I have a new state now, which is the sum of this and the sum of Benin? Okay. Are we clear with this now? Now we are using smaller data. So when we see how it works with smaller data, then when we now use bigger data, at least we already understand how it works. Okay. We can see how it works. Now, if, for example, this Oyo State, we wanted to change the name, let's say this Oyo, we call this Oyo initially, right? Either I can come back here and change it. But if the name was already changed, you're not the one that created it, and you have to change that name there. Okay? So it means what we can do, the same way we did that first time, the df.rename, right? So what are we renaming? We are renaming the word columns, right? So we have to now put in words. So what was the old name? The old name was what? Oyo, right? Then what's the new name? What new name should we call it now? From Oyo, what name should we call it? What name should we call it?
Ekiti.
Ekiti, okay, good. From that, we'll change it to what? Ekiti. So, Ekiti. So you see that? But take notes. You see, I changed the name and this is what I got here. But if I decide to say DF, do you see the name is still there? That old name is still there when I went back. So it means that this is temporary. So what you can do, either I go and put it inside a new variable, so that anytime I call DF1, it will give me that. Or if I want to leave it in the same, if I want to still leave it there, I want to make it permanent. So what I will do to make it permanent, what do? You say in place. In place equals to what? True. In place equals to true. Now we see that. So in place means what? In place means what? Make it permanent. So if I run DF now, it will not be permanent. Is that clear? Have we got that now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's in place. So anytime you want to make it permanent, you use what? In place. Or you can just create it in a new variable. I know, for example, now what's the shape of this data now? What's the shape of this our table now? What's the shape of our table? What's the shape of our table now?
Data frame.
I say, what's the shape? What's the shape?
It's 5 by 5.
It's what?
6 by 5.
6
5
by
by 6.
5. 5 by 6. Which one do we take?
It's 5 by 5.
So df dot shape, is it not? So what's the shape of our data? So it's 5 by 6, isn't it? So most time when you check, you want to check the shape of your what? Data. So remember, it's row by column, just like you have in your matrix. Row by what? Columns. Okay, so it means 5 rows, 6 what? Columns. 5 rows, 6 what? Columns. And now, whenever you are reading, you know what we have been reading? We have been reading it by the column name, right? We have been reading it by the column name. But you know these are called the index. You know, this is the index. So the index is the row. The index is the row. Okay, the index is the row. Right? The index is the row. So if we are reading it by the index, so there's something they call ILOC. Have you heard of ILOC? It's called index location. Index location. As ILOC. Index location. So if we have, for example, df.iloc, iloc, let's say 0. Iloc 0 means what? Iloc 0 means what? What does iloc 0 mean?
The first index location.
Yes. Index, what does index refer to? Index refers to what? When you say index, what does index refer to? The
Row.
index. The row. So it's reading it as the row. Right? By default, it's reading by what? Row, because matrix reads row by column. So by default, your index is what? The row. Take note of that, especially when we are going to be doing data cleaning. By default, your index is the row. Okay? So which means if I say iloc 0 means the first row. Can you see the first row? So that's what he has here like this. Can you see that? 69, 112, 97. So that's the first word row. Means we can also select. Maybe for example, I want to see from this is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So if I want to see from index 1, so df.iloc 1 to the end. Can you see that? 1 to the end. So look at 1 to the end means what? This is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you see that? So that's what we have there. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 1 to the end. 1 to the end. Do we get that now? So the same way I can say 1 to column. Okay, let's say 1 to column 3. So I want to see between 1 and 3. So 1 and 3, what is it doing? This is 0, 1, 2, 3. But remember, it's taking one less. You know, so it means if I want to see this third one, that means I have to put 4. If I want to see 3 of them, I'll put 4. Because start from what? Index 0. Are we clear with this now? Are we clear with this?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. So just the same way we create our columns, right? The same way we're creating our columns based on the formula of functions. Let me say df. So just the way we are creating our new columns, right? So it depends on how the formula is that you build it. So the same way we have our arithmetic operations, it means I can add, I can subtract, I can divide, I can multiply, you know, I can find the square root. I can even what? Do a whole formula there. It means I can have A plus B divided by C. That means that I can have all these functions and they will all be all these formulas and they will all be creating the columns for me. So we have seen how to add, isn't it? It means we can also what? Subtract, right? If, for example, I wanted to change these names now, I want to change these names to something else now. I want to change this one to what? I want to change this one to revenue. I want to change this one to cost. How do I change Abuja to revenue and Lagos to cost? Or Lagos revenue, Abuja cost. How will I change it now? I want to change Lagos to revenue, while Abuja will be cost. How would we do that? df.rename. What are we renaming now?
Abuja,
Yes, I have to rename the columns, right?
columns equal to dictionary, Abuja,
Let's say, okay. Abuja.
column,
Column.
costs.
Then Lagos.
Lagos, column, like revenue.
Like this.
Yes.
All right. Can we see that? So it means if I want to create a new column called profits, so what do I do now? It will be GF.
DF, name.
I don't need to rename anything now. I want to calculate the profit.
Oh, okay.
So I don't need to rename it now. So I'll just GF, I'll put the name of the column, new name. So to do the calculation, now GF, it now be revenue.
Revenue.
Minus
DF. Cost.
You know what we have done here is the same thing as writing DF. Let me see, DF dot profit equals to DF dot revenue minus DF dot cost. This may work, but I don't know for the names. I'm not sure if this will work, but let's see. No, this will not work. So let's take that out. So
we've not appended a new column called profits.
Is that?
We've not created a new column called profits.
No, this is what is creating the new column now. If I run it this way, let's see. What is it saying here? Revenue, okay. My spelling is correct. Revenue. Let me check. Let me confirm first that that revenue is there. GF revenue. Enemies.
Not there.
It's not there. Okay, which means this is what. So why is it? This means that this is what temporary, is it not? So it means if we want to make it permanent, what do we do? In place equals to what? True. Can you see that now? So if I call DF now, it will now be there. All right. So let me try that again. So if I say DF dot revenue, you see that should still work. Minus DF dot what? Cost. This should still work, is it not? So the question now is that can I use DF dot profit and whether it will read it as? Did you read it? Pandas don't allow columns to be created via attributes name. Okay. This was before, but now I don't know if it still work. Okay, so it didn't allow it. So that means it does not allow using this method, but I think it's still allowed before. But let's run it now. So run that. So we call DF. So can we see profit now? Can you see that it will allow you to create the profit now?
Yes.
So if I want to calculate margin now, so how do I calculate the margin now? The profit margin. So it will be what? DF margin equal to what? So how do you calculate margin?
Equal to DF dot profit.
Profit, yes.
Divided by DF revenue.
Run DF, and I'll have my margin there. Can you see that? And I'll have my what margin there. All right, I think that's clear. So the same way, if I want to square any value there, let's say I want to square beneath, right? I want to square beneath, so I can have is equals to df power 2. Can you see that? I want to take the square of this and put that value there back inside there. Right, df. So can you see that has been squared? That has been squared there. All right. So we are clear how we create variables now, right? We have seen how
Yes,
to
sir.
create variables, right? So if I want to create maybe I want to create something called data, and I want to have revenue, cost, revenue, and margin. So what do I do? Cost, revenue, and margin. What do I do? I want to extract cost, revenue, and margin. I want to extract cost, revenue, and margin. What do I do? Cost, revenue, and margin. Cost, revenue, and margin.
Data is equal to DF. That's the list.
This, right?
That's the bracket.
So you have to double what quotation, double square brackets. So I'll call it revenue.
Revenue, comma.
Let's check my spelling now. Revenue, comma,
Cost.
and margin. So now if I call data, now this will be the data there. Can you see that? So it means we can create a subset of our tables inside and that one. Then that's the one we'll be using to work. All right. So we have seen how to create what? New columns, is it not? We have seen how to create new columns. Now, if I want to drop this margin now, how do I drop this margin? This margin. If I want to drop margin now, how do I drop it? So it will be what? Data, or let's use, should we still use DF for data? Which one should we work with?
Data.
Data, okay, let's work with data. All right, data. So I want to drop margin now. Okay, so I want to drop margin. So if you df data dot drop, right? What am I dropping?
Margin.
Margin, isn't it? I'm dropping what? Margin. Axis is equals to 1. What does that mean? Axis equals to 1. What does that mean?
I think it's specified.
By default, axis is 0. What does axis represent? What does axis represent?
Like rows or column.
Axis represents your rows. It's just like your index now, is it not? So by default, it's reading it as axis equals to 0. So it's the row is reading. So you have to tell it that what? Axis equals to 1. Axis equals to 1 means what? It is the column. Probably, let me see if it will show it here. Can you see axis is equals to 0 by default? So which means it's always reading it by the row. So let me see. Can you see that? 0 is what? Index. Can you see that? So index represents what? Index represents what?
Rows.
Rows.
So 1 represents what? Column. Can you see that now? So that's why we change it from there. So because I want to drop this column, now I have to change it. But if I just left it as margin, is there anything like margin on the axis side? Is there anything like margin here? Does it have anything like margin there? So it will just give us an error. So let's see. Can you see we have dropped it? But please take note, it has not dropped it permanently. It is temporary. Do you want to drop it permanently? Do we want to drop
Yes.
it permanently? So if we want to drop it permanently, what do we now do?
You add in place.
Place equals to
True.
what? True. Hey, well, what did he say? Have it. So let me go to data and check. All right, that's dropped. Now, sometimes when there are changes, they give you warning. That's why sometimes you can import ignore warning, so that all this warning will not come up. Because there are some versions when there are new versions coming up, a certain method you are using no longer works, it will give you a warning. All right. So it means if I want to remove the row now, so let's say I want to remove which row do we want to remove now? Which row do we want to remove? Which of these rows? We should want to remove A now, is it not? Okay, good. So it means it will be what? Data dot what? Drop, right? What am I dropping? A. Right? Now if I say drop A like this, can you see that it work? You see that it work? But is it permanent or temporary? Is this permanent or temporary?
Temporary.
Temporary. To make it permanent, what do we do? What do we do?
In place.
Yes, in place equals to true. You know what we have done before? You know, before what we have done for the column, we have typed index equals to 1. This for column. But by default, index equals to 0. This is the full way to write it. Do you see that now? So if I run this, it will still be the same. It should still give you the same thing. But let's say can't this, or it cannot specify both labels and index columns. So let's remove. Okay, sorry, axis, not axis equals to 0. Yeah, axis equals to 0. So if I run data now, so you can see it will drop that for you. Now, much later, when we start going into, we'll now start selecting what a range that we are starting to select. But for now, we'll just be going one after the other. Okay. But I'm sure we are okay with this now, right? Are we okay with this? We have seen how to read it now, is it not? We have added columns, is it not? We have removed columns, we have removed rows. So probably we can start working with a data set now. Maybe another thing I wanted to add there. Sometimes you see this, by default, your index supposed to give you from starts from row 0, is it not? But this one we have put index A, B, C, D, E. Sometimes you may want to reset your index and go back to default. So if you are resetting your index, right? So you can have data dot reset index. So can you see that? It will go and reset it back to the original. All right. But this is temporary. If you want to make it permanent, what do you now do? In place equals to what? True. In place equal to true. Then we can run that. So if I now run data, it will now come back to the original now. So if you had your index by default, you have put it here. If you want to bring it back, this is how you do it. You reset what? The index. You reset the index. But if you wanted to put the index now, so let's say you had a column now, as the index now. So this column is the index. So I want to put it now. We want to put it now, right? So what do? We can now have data dot set index. What's the name of our index here? We'll call it index, right? So it will come down here. So if you had a column name there, this is how you would have done it. It will not insert the index. Especially when your data is so large or you have a unique, for example, you have an employee ID. You can now use what? The employee ID as what? The index number. So you can easily read them. So you can easily read them. All right. I hope this is clear. So let's look for any data sets that we can work with. I think we normally use that, what they call that, Superstore data, right? Okay, that's true. Before we even get there, there's something I remember. Sometimes, okay, let me create another set so that we can, let me explain some concepts first. Because you know, when you are importing those data, there are some instances where you may not have all the data available. Okay, so there are some instances you may need to drop, right? Just the way we're trying to drop. So see, let's create a simple. Let me create inside a data frame. Let's say pd dot data frame. Let us use okay. So let's create let me see now. Maybe I'll have, let's say 10, 20. If you want to do NaN to get missing data, I just put mp.nan means missing data. Can you see that? So I can have 30, 40, or let's say 50. So let me copy this guy because I will apply it in all of them now. Let me copy it so that they be consistent. Okay, so let me paste that. Let me paste that. Okay, good. So here, let me call it B. Or we can call this, can we call this Abuja? Can we call this Lagos? Can we call this what now? Okay, so maybe I'll change here to, let's say 40, maybe get 30, maybe get 10. Okay, let me have here okay, what if I use all this one? Let all this one be empty. Then maybe I have another situation that all of them are all filled up. So let's say 10, 20, let's say 40. All right, so let's create something like this. I hope that works. Enemies. Data frame has no attribute data frame. What did I do? df dot. What's missing there? What's missing here? pd dot, yeah. All right, so can we see? Let's assume we have imported this data, isn't it? So these are instances of what we call missing data, is it not? We have missing data. We have missing data. And you know, most times the easiest thing to do with missing data is to what? Drop it, right? Most times the easiest thing to do is to what? Drop it. But please take note, so before you drop any missing data, be sure, one, you have enough data to work with. Secondly, if it's not, you are not doing prediction and it's actual reporting you are doing, do not drop any miss, especially when you have missing, do not drop it. Because dropping that missing data it means that you are dropping the transaction for the business. which means you are going to what understate or underreport whatever value you are stating there. Okay. So most times you have to what go back to the source where that data is coming from to check if you can get it or not. If not, you have to note that. All right. But normally, if it's just for predictive purpose, then where we have data available there, that's fine, we can use. If not, we can drop. But before you drop, be very careful. Be sure that it's absolutely necessary you drop. So we can say drop what? NA. So drop NA means anywhere I see missing data, I will drop. Can you see? There's missing data here, drop it. Missing data here, drop it. Missing data here, drop it. So we are left with what? 1, 2. Can you see that now? So drop NA. Now, is this going to be permanent? Is this going to be permanent? So if I come here and say DF, you see it's not permanent. If I want to make it permanent, what do I do? If I want to make it permanent, in place, exactly, in place. And you know that by default, is dropping your axis first. You see that? It's dropping your axis first. So if I wanted to drop NA but drop the columns, now what do I do? If I want to drop the columns now, so it means this column will be dropped, this column will be dropped. So what do we do? DF the what? Drop NA, axis, axis equal to 1. Can you see that? Axis equal to 1. Again, if you have to drop permanently, you can now use what? Index equals to 1. But you see, when you now have, let's say, NaN, you know, NaN is like missing data there, right? So let's say that missing data now, where I have NaN, I want to fill it with something. Let's say I want to fill it with, in place of NaN, what should we put here now? Unknown or no data? What should we put here? In place of NaN, what can we put there?
Zero.
Zero. Okay, I want to first fill it with the text first before I'll fill it with 0 later. But if I want to fill it with the text now, how do I fill it with the text? What text should we put in place of it now? In place of this unknown, what text should I put there? I can put none, Abi, or unknown.
None, nil.
Yeah? Or okay, if you want to put null, even null, you can even put null there. So the same way, I can have df dot fill, but in this case we fill NA, but where I have value equals to what? Null. Can you see that? Null. So anyway, I see that one, I'll put null, null, null. So this one I'm filling with what? If I want to put maybe unknown, unknown. Can you see that I can put it unknown? Or I can put it as IJ. Can you see that? I can just put whatever value you want. So whenever you are filling a text, so it is filling the value equals to what? Whatever you want to put there. If you want to put null, you can put null. And see it there. Is this permanent? So if I want to put it here, maybe I can put df2. So maybe I can just store it there, df2, so that when I call df2, I'll still have my original one there. Df will still be original there. So if I say df2 dot drop NA, will this work? Can you see now there's nothing to drop? You see there's nothing to drop now because now it has seen here as what? Null. But you know the way we have used null here is seen it as a text, not as an empty space. I hope you understand that.
Yes.
You know, normally database null means empty. But with the way we have done it here and say put a null, is when it's reading it, and it's not seeing it as empty. It's seeing it as there's a text there. I hope you understand that. It is this NaN that actually understands that no value there, that is empty, not null. But in our normal database or Excel, when we see blank usually in the SQL, you see it as null. But here, if I go and put null there, it's not going to see it as there's nothing there. I hope we get that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So if I come here, df, so here, for example, we have, so here, if I was adding up now, let's say I have what now? This is 10, 20, that's 30, is that 70, is that 100, that 150. So here should be 150, right? pH should be 150.
Yes.
Okay. So it means if I want to add up pH, it will be what? df dot what? pH df dot pH dot, let's say, sum. Can you see that? You know, it's the same thing as df pH dot sum. Sometimes this thing can be more handy, especially when you are writing it inside a function, right? Than when you want to write it like this. Okay, so that's why you have to take note that you can write it this way or write it this way. Okay, so it means I can add up. If I want to add, so which method do you want us to be using? This first one or this one?
First one.
Second one.
The second one. Okay. So if I want to do the mean now, right? The mean or the average, so it will be dot mean. Can you see that? The mean. So it means let's do for Abuja now. So for Abuja, it will be Abuja. So now confirm that Abuja is correct. So this means that what? This is what? 10 plus what? 20 plus what? 30 plus what? 50. Is it not? What did I give us? 110. Divide by how many now? Is it by 4 or 5? Abuja, are we dividing it by 4? Are we dividing by 5? We have summed up now. When we are adding up, are we dividing by 4? We are dividing by 5.
It's 4.
Huh? 4 or 5?
4.
Okay, so divide by 4. So you have 27.45. Can we see that now? Now let's come back to DF2. Right? Remember we use null. So let's try and write the function now. Dot Abuja dot mean. Why is it giving us error? Why is it giving us error?
Because there's a text in DF2. Null is a text.
Beautiful. Because this our null that we are seeing there is our DF2 is a text. And we cannot add up text. You know, we cannot divide, we cannot carry arithmetic operations on text. So do you see the reason why you would have left it and use NaN rather than going to write null there? I hope this is clear now. So
Yes.
anytime you have numbers, they don't go and put unknown or anything, just leave it blank as it is. Because if you go and put a value, if you go and put a text there, you cannot add up, you cannot divide, you cannot do anything there. Because a string and this thing will not work together. Same thing, if I want to do the median the same way, so df dot what? Let's say Lagos. Okay, let me use ph. I think ph dot median 30. Is that the correct thing? The median, is it 30? If I had to choose between median and the average, which one will you go for? If I had to go for median or average, which one do we go for?
So I think it depends.
Now, assuming mean was 60 or 45, median was 30, which one will you take?
Mean.
Which one will you take?
Or no, assuming mean was like 60, then we'll take median.
If mean, well, okay, let's say mean was 45, right? Mean was 45, median was 30. Which one will we go for?
Median.
Why?
Because mean is affected by outliers.
Great. Everybody, do we agree with that?
Yes.
Good. So if they are both the same, anyone I take doesn't matter, right? But the moment I check and I see the difference between my median and my mean is large, what does that indicate to you already? What is that indicating to you?
So there's an outlier somewhere.
There's likely an outlier, isn't it? There's an outlier, likely an outlier. Everybody, I hope we are clear with that. Are we all clear with that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good. Now, just the same way we are saying, fill with what? Fill with.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we said fill with the blank, with null, is it not? With null value or unknown. We can also fill those missing data with the mean. You see that? We can fill that missing data with the mean. Okay, we can fill that missing data with what? The mean. Okay. So if we are filling the missing data with the mean, so the same way, so let's say, for example, I want to fill NA with the mean, right? I want to fill NA with the mean. So if I have here df dot fill NA value equals to what? I want to fill it what? Let's say Abuja, I want to fill Abuja with the average, right? So it will be df, right? Let's use, okay, df Abuja dot what? The mean. Can you see that? So in this case, we are filling what? We are filling with what? We are filling what? Everything with the missing with the average of what? Abuja. Can you see that? We are filling everything with the missing data of what? Abuja. Do you see that now?
But what if we want to fill
You want to now fill it with what?
Their own mean.
With each state, you know. So it means that I will have df Abuja, right? Dot fill NA with what? The value of what?
df Abuja. Abuja dot mean.
Can you see that now? I filled it with that. Okay. So here was general. Just fill everything about DF. You know, DF is our entire data frame. So fill it with the average of what? Abuja. But if I want to fill it specifically with its own, then I have to now use this method. Now, if I run DF now, check now, DF. You see, it's still what? Temporary. Is it not? So if I want to make it permanent, what do we now do? What do we now do? Dot ENA DF Abuja dot in place was to true. We're on DF now. Can you see that? So for Lagos, if we were to do that for Lagos now, we were to do it for Lagos now. So here we have Lagos. So here we have Lagos. So here, for example, I want to fill in the median. So it will be median of Lagos. Right? Now, here, okay, here we can use the mid though. We can still use the mid. But if you want to use median in the same way, so let's use the mid of that. So DF. So now we have our what data complete. Have we got that now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Now you know that, you know, if you're in what they call it now, using Excel now, right? You know how you'd have used, okay, maybe we can create a simple one where we can have, maybe I can create maybe other variables. Let it be like a 2 variables, right? Let's say I can have the state, we can have maybe the person or maybe the company name, right? With the values. So let's try and create a simple listing data sets. So that when we import our Excel file, right? It's the same analogy that we used here. That will be using that data set. Because you know when you're working with large data set, sometimes when you're running the code, it's working, but you may not be seeing what is going on at the back end. But when the data is smaller, you can actually see what is actually doing. Okay, that's why I usually prefer using small data sets. So once we can see it, then when we go into bigger data sets now, it will not make more sense. So maybe we can create a. So maybe let's create. Okay, let's create the states or company now. Let's say. Okay, let's create data, right? Data. Let me create maybe company. Let's create states. So which states? So let's use, I think there's a place I created states. Let me see that I have it here. States. Okay, I have it here. Let me copy this one. Let me copy this. States. Okay, good. Comma. So let's create maybe employees. Let's say employees. Let's say, how many do you have there? 5, right? So let's say we have 1, 6, let's say, AJ, let's say we have let's say Moses. So how many do you have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's match it. Let's match it. Let's create one more. Let's say we have okay. So we have state. So maybe let me add one more. So let's say we add the, do I have revenue there or sales? Yes, I have sales there. So let me add sales. Just copy this one out. Copy. All right, I think that's fine. But normally when you are writing, it's better you separate it. So just put and just separate them better. So it's much cleaner to write it this way. So you have the first state, you have that. Okay. All right, I think that I hope that works. So if we have data here, so we have this, isn't it? So if I want to create a data frame now, what do I do? So df is equals to pd dot what?
Data frame.
Data frame. Then I have what? Data. So I run df. So I have something like this now. Okay, good. So we have something like this now. You know, if it was in Excel, I would have repeated some. Let me repeat some of them so that we can. Let's say, for example, here. Let me repeat some of them. So maybe I have Lagos, Lagos, so maybe I have Abuja, maybe I have okay. So how many did I add just now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11. Okay. So let's say we have 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110. So let's add here this G. So let's add this G here. Let's add. Where again can we add? Okay, let's add right John. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we need about 3 more names. So let's have pizza. Let's have Paul. Right. Let's have pizza. Let's have Paul. It's up to 11 now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Maybe I'll add one more. We have John. Let's say James. All right, so let's run that and check. Okay, good. So let's run that. Hopefully. Aha, better. Good, good. You know, normally, if you're in Excel, if you wanted to analyze this data in Excel, how you analyze it in Excel? If you wanted to analyze this data in Excel, how we analyze it in Excel?
Pivot tables.
You'd have used pivot table, isn't it? So what will you do in the pivot table now?
We just pick all Lagos all Abuja, all PH. As
Yeah. So you'd have taken state to where? You'd have dragged the state to where?
state to I think rows.
To the rows. You take the state to the rows. Then you take the sales to where?
Values.
You take sales to values. The same analogy that we use there, isn't it? So actually, what you are doing there is what they refer to as group by. So you are grouping by the states, isn't it? You are grouping by what? The states. So which means here I can have DF, right? Dot what? Group by. What am I grouping by? I'm grouping by what? The states. Isn't it? Group by the states. So if I want to put any aggregation, so most either we use the sum, or we use the mean. Either you use the sum. So you see by default, so confirm that it's aggregating it correctly, right? So here, so it means for Lagos, what are we supposed to have for Lagos now? Where's our Lagos? So what should we have for Lagos now? So it will be what? 10, 30, 60. So Lagos is 60, right? Abuja is what? 30, 90, right? So that's 90. Good. So always randomly check whether what the output is giving you is correct or not. Because the moment you miss it, every other thing you are going to be doing will also be wrong. So you always check randomly that is giving you the right thing. Okay. So this is what your pivot table will do for you. Is that not what we do in pivot table? So to give you your sales by your states, not. So the same way, I can also do the average of it. So DF dot what? Group by what? The states. Dot what? The mean. Can you see that? Dot the mean. Okay, so you can do that by the what? The mean. Okay, you can do that by the mean. If we had different names there, we can also group by also the names. So just the same way you have the average, you have the mean. Can we do a count? Can we do a count? So can we do a count here? Okay, can you see your count? So we count. So Abuja to okay. So all those your descriptive statistics, I think you can do most of them. So you can have your count. I think you can have your max. I see that you can have your maximum. You can have your minimum. Wait, but let's confirm that this what the output is correct too. So let me use DF and see. So he said if I look through this data, right, by states, is that
This is the network, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can speak now.
Yeah. But I can't log in with my system now. Can someone share screen if you can wrap up? Is IJ there or somebody? Who was following while we were doing it? Because I don't have my system now. So if someone can share screen, then we'll work from there. Can anyone share screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm trying to log in on my system now.
Okay, okay.
So, sir, this is where I stopped.
Let me see. Okay. Okay, I've created the. Let me see. Okay, that's fine. Run the full data. Let me run the data frame. Let me see what data looks like. DF. I was trying to confirm that if that minimum and maximum, whether it's giving the accurate data. No, we created another one now. I wanted to illustrate how to do group by.
Yes, sir. So yeah, this is actually
Okay.
where I stopped. So for the rest, I was following on screen.
Okay, on screen. And the enemies. Okay, don't worry now. Probably we can stop here now, right? So next week when I come, we'll start from here. Then we'll now import data and start working with it. I think that's fine.
Okay, sir. Yes,
All
sir.
right. All right. So stop it here. All right. Take care, guys. So next week we'll continue from here.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, sir.
All right. No
Thank you,
problem.
Dr. Francis.
Yeah. Bye. Let me see. Close. Okay.